In a moment, but first let me introduce my panel today. ABC24's political analyst is Otis Sanford. He is on the your left over there. Chris Tudor is a former Shelby County chairman for the Republican Party. And we have Reverend Ken Whalum, who is the pastor of New Olivet Worship Center. So we'll start with the talking and all the talking about what's going on in Nashville. Invariably, this seems to come up no matter what the session is and no matter what the topics are. They can't help themselves, guys. They have to pass legislation that seems to be very targeted on one city and one city only, whether it be schools or what have you. And this issue with the pretextual stops, basically trying to negate the reform measures that were enacted by City Council. You got to believe the City Council did these initially with the best of intentions because of the tragedy this whole community endured. But on the other hand, shouldn't a police department decide how to police itself rather than the City Council stepping in the first place? Maybe that's their point.
And you're right. Maybe it should have. So why didn't the police department do this on their own? I mean, that's the question you can ask. Yeah, it does seem like Nashville is always dumping on Memphis. In this case, the two leaders in this legislation, both in the House and Senate, are from our area. We're talking about Brent Taylor and John Gillespie. I just think that despite this bill being passed, and it's going to be signed by the governor, I don't think there's any question about that. C.J. Davis, the interim police chief, has already said that she had initiated some of the things that were in the ordinances that the City Council passed anyway. And so I don't think the legislature, unless they want to come down here, or unless Brent Taylor and John Gillespie wants to go out and try to police the police, I don't think that they're going to have that much oversight of what the police can and cannot do on this issue. So I just think, okay, you passed the bill, but we're going to move forward, and the police department is going to do what their policies state.
It is interesting as the years have progressed, especially when it comes to crime and blight issues too, I suppose, how often the city has said, hey, we need help from the state. And they've gone to state lawmakers saying, please help us get more prosecutors, help us pay them more. And those have been granted too. We shouldn't forget that Memphis has come with its hand out too, asking for help.
Yeah, I don't think the relationship is as antagonistic as it seems on the surface, right? And I will say, Nashville feels the same way about the state government. Remember, the state government thought about expanding the city council, right? I mean, that's pretty dramatic. Here, you had a majority of the city council that was well-intentioned, but I think it was wrong-headed. And you also have legal issues here. There are state laws that could fall into the category of these pretextual stops. And I'll make an analogy. It's not perfect, but when a state says something or does something that flouts the federal Constitution, what happens? Okay, well, the state doesn't do that anymore because that's our system. If a municipality does something that flouts state law, what happens? The state preempts that. And I think that's what's happening here. I think you have two people pushing this bill who know Memphis, who love Memphis. Gillespie, Representative Gillespie, is from here. He lives in the city. Senator Taylor was on the city council for a long time. He was a longtime city resident. I think now he lives in unincorporated Shelby County, but it may be part of Memphis. I don't see this as an antagonist. I think this is a good thing. But Otis, I think you're right. The police department knows what they need to do. They're going to do it. And if this helps them, I think it's a good thing.
Well, I think that the City Council has another way that they can have sort of the same impact. Now, Chris is the resident expert on this, but the term pretextual traffic stop is a legal term which suggests that the reason a vehicle was stopped was because the police wanted to search for drugs or search for some other kind of contraband.
It's more than just this traffic stop.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So if the City Council now, because they can't override the state legislation, if they want to have a similar impact, return to car inspections.
That's a great point.
2013, we stopped inspecting cars. So let's reinstitute car inspections and take away that pretext. Let's make people get their cars inspected, and there'll be fewer reasons for the police. And they only use it on the back end anyway. If it ever goes to court, the police will come back and say, well, their taillight was out. Well, reduce the number of reasons for that.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, you know, you had the very emotional pleas from Tyreek's parents in Nashville on 2 different occasions in the past couple of weeks, pleading with lawmakers to not pass this legislation because the way they view it, their son would still be alive if it wasn't for pretextual stops.
Right.
But you also do see some fairly convincing anecdotal evidence that they do work when implemented properly and the way they should be in finding people who might be wanted for more serious crimes.
Well, but the examples that Brent Taylor gave the other day just doesn't fly here, because he gave the examples of Ted Bundy and Timothy McVeigh. Well, the things that they were stopped for was not included in the city council ordinances to begin with. So
Right.
I think that's a red herring. And we said this last week, Richard, I just think that even though John Gillespie felt that he was doing the right thing by pushing this law, I do think that he misled the Nichols parents by telling them not to come to Nashville, and because we're going to delay the bill, and then they wound up not delaying the bill. That was kind of dirty pool in my mind.